So this team is bereft of talent. Vrabel said it himself. I think we can all look at it and outside of special teams where there is a Pro Bowl, an all-pro.
He can cover things like nobody's business.
Slater is not missed, let's just say that.
Yep.
This is where that team has got it locked down. Yeah. When it comes to gunners, this guy is the best.
They can scout that position real well.
But regardless, non-sarcastically, they have, in my estimation, pretty much two well above average players at premium position, and they're both at premium positions. One is Drake May and one is Christian Gonzalez. Do you stand by that opinion? Are those
one of the worst rosters in the NFL?
Yeah. Okay. So do you think that those are basically like the two like studs on the roster?
Tentpole players, blue chip players. Like pick your synonym.
Okay. Very good. All right. So you agree. So a lot of holes to fill. All right. But they have a lot of money in free agency and they got a high draft pick. How do you tackle the offseason to rebuild that quickly?
So you have to start in the trenches, and that goes for both sides of the ball. And this is not like the old coach's cliche of football's won up front and you got to build inside out. That's where you're weakest. And so I want to add this too, is it's not just like I think the world of Mike Vrabel, because there are things he said, even this week that I kind of raised an eyebrow and go, oh, that's not great. I think the coaching that he'll bring in around him.
What has he said real quick that you didn't like?
He's discussed, and I don't know if he totally believes this because he's a pretty good situational coach, the correlation between throwing 50 times a game and that's like a guaranteed way to lose. And he sees rushing attempts as having a causal relationship with winning, to which I would say you've got that backwards. You win and then you run. You pass to get ahead. It's not, if you pass a lot, then you start losing. Like that's an old kind of coach's fallacy, which is, they'd be like, oh, nerds, analytics, yada, yada. It's just true. So you need to build inside out. And I think at all other positions, you look at a guy like Keon White, has an outstanding 2-game stretch, right? 4 sacks right away. That dude is going to be a better player next year, not just because it's year 3, but because his coaches are going to be better than the ones he had last year. So it's raising the level of the talent you have now, which again is not great. Filling in both tackle spots, which will be huge. I think they have enough bodies in the middle of that offensive line to make it work. And then defensively, buck up and add some talent around the players that you do have, and certainly cross your fingers Christian Barmore comes back.
Okay, so
the offensive line.
I can't.
Yeah.
Now, but do you go hog wild in free agency again, like you did when you got Mac Jones and it set the franchise back? Do you? Because that doesn't work. You get what we've learned in the history of the NFL is going crazy in free agency gives you a 1-year bump, basically,
right?
And then you're back to square one. So you got to be very careful. You utilize free agency, but you got to be very careful. Like, where are you spending your money? There are left tackles available. Some of them are old, some of them aren't, but they're available for a reason.
You say fill in both tackle spots. You drove right past
that.
That
are you?
It's not easy.
Are you drafting a tackle?
How do you do it? That's my answer.
Yeah. But are you drafting a tackle at 4 and then like getting it in free agency? Are you getting to? Do you think you can draft 2 tackles in free agency? Like, or not draft 2 tackles, sign 2 tackles in free agency? Like, what do you?
Fred, it's your birthday. You can draft whoever you want in free agency today at any time off the street.
Free agency is money, and draft is draft position. All right, so that's keep that clear.
I think you bring up a good point because we look back and go, 2021 wasn't great. Like you got Matt Judon and Hunter Henry worked out, and everything else was like, that was bad. What I would do if I'm the Patriots, you got clear top 2 targets, and this goes for probably 10 other teams in the league. So this is not unique. This is not smart. It's just the obvious right move that you have to make. Ronnie Stanley is the best left tackle available in free agency. He's with the Ravens, prime of his career. He's got some health issues. That's a left tackle. You give him as much money as you can scrounge up at one Patriot place in Foxborough and say, please come here. T. Higgins is the other one, okay? If you go 1 for 2, it's a good free agency. What you do then is, to go back to the Commanders for a second, is fill in with a lot more mid-level veterans. Guys that you see value in, and nailing the evaluation obviously is critical. Guys like Austin Eckler, okay? Running backs are old, not particularly valuable. He's been decent for them. Bobby Wagner has been great. Now, Wagner's going to the Hall of Fame, but those are players, not unlike the beginning of the dynasty. You want to go back 25 years ago, Rodney Harrison, back end of his prime. Pick up players like Mike Vrabel, who was undervalued in Pittsburgh, differently used. So you swing big at the top, okay, because those are positions you have to pay for. That's it, non-negotiable. Everything else is not at the top like they did 4 years ago. It's more in the middle to build depth, give you flexibility, and players that you know when they get here know what to do and where to be. And right now, you don't have a lot of those players because of how young you are and how poorly you've been coached.
Would you take Devonte Adams in free agency?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I wouldn't either.
He's going to cost way more than he's worth.
Yeah, and I just think, I think that's a headache. Now, you know who's supposedly in on T. Higgins is the Chargers, because they don't think Lad McConkey is a number one receiver.
But if you're the Patriots, you can outbid them and everybody else if you really want them.
But I would be worried about if I'm the Patriots is T. Higgins going to go, well, I want to go to the Chargers.
Live in L.A., catch passes from Justin Herbert, play indoors.
Yeah, and then make
hard.
the playoffs and with the possibility of challenging for a Super Bowl. So that's when I heard that yesterday. I actually heard that yesterday. I was like, oof.
The Patriots,
I'm not so sure the Patriots get T. Higgins.
The Patriots are going to have to blow away whoever it is they want, specifically because they're terrible.
Yeah, totally. It's a suck tax. That's what it is. You stink. You have to pay more. And I'll underscore this, even though the clip has already been cut and surely splashed everywhere. When I say this, it's not coming from a place of, I believe so much in Mike Vrabel and Ryan Cowden and Elliot Wolf and the roster as it is in Drake May, though I do believe in most of those guys. There should be no more excuses here. Like, you have the head coach, you've got the quarterback, you've got the cap space, the high draft pick. This is not Super Bowl. This is not win the division. It's push for a playoff spot. Be competitive. Okay, you are the New England Patriots. You can do this. You have the tools available to you and ability to rise. Like, if you look at the Commanders last year, their preseason over-under win total, 6.5. Okay, unprecedented leap for them. But they made a lot of moves that you just did to start in the most important positions possible.
Which is why you can remove the whole "you are the New England Patriots" part out of it. I mean, that's standing on what you've done in the past. You know, for that same reason, the Commanders, you are the Washington Commanders. You're not going to make the playoffs. I mean, forget about what the name means. We're looking at the roster. We're looking at the areas of need that they have, which are plentiful. And when you add in the suck tax that you're going to have to pay, and you're also going to have to convince yourself that Elliot Wolf is going to be able to draft if he's still a part of this process. Now, I know Vrabel and Cowden are going to be a part of it, and it looks like they're going to be, but you have to accomplish all these things. And I still say remove the "you are the New England Patriots." You can do this. So what? Yeah, they were the New England Patriots. If that's what if maybe that's more to the point. But what that means is it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean that your previous success has no bearing now on what lays ahead of you. And what lays ahead of you is a bunch of rosters, a bunch of personnel holes that need to be filled. And I still have questions about Elliot Wolf and the amount of influence that he holds over him, whether or not he's going to be able to do that.
So when I say you're the New England Patriots, I say that from an expectations standpoint. Right? Like who you are and what you mean to this area and your fan base that is attending the last game of the year like it's a baseball game. You know, people I talk to who are in those stands are like, we're just chatting. No one's really watching. You're just kind of hanging out. That's not what this organization's about. This is not what this region is about. It's not what the fan base is about. Everyone understands how far away you are, like you're talking about, okay? But a team that has low expectations, like the Commanders, the dysfunction, the history, turns over ownership, GM, head coach, quarterback, all the way on down, goes and does this, okay? You have, again, those pieces now in place again, and it will take time to develop to get to where the Commanders are now. Divisional round next year for the Patriots should be completely off the table. Let's never utter those two things in the same sentence again. But pushing for a playoff spot, yes. Like there should be no excuses here anymore. As been said in this station, losing like this is not okay. This should not be tolerated. I know that's why they've made certain changes. It's why Gerard Mayo's gone. Wolf's a great question. It seems like, as I said on TV earlier this week, Ryan Cowden is coming in, is this kind of cuckoo bird who's going to kick the present occupant out of the nest and then kind of take over.
Is he more qualified than Elliot Wolf? Like, it's not like he's an established general manager. And, everyone's like, well, kick Elliot Wolf out. And I understand the reason for that.
And, John, is it true? Is that what cuckoo birds do?
John, you have that cousin that went off the edge. We have to know about you have some experience with that. But Elliot, so, So all right, so you don't like Elliot Wolf, but is this guy? Well, what has this guy done?
It's a good question.
No, I'm not saying you're saying it, but for people that desperately want this guy to go be the general manager, why is he a better option? That would sometimes just replacing someone isn't an upgrade. You know what I'm saying? Like
totally.
Yeah. Like, do you think Elliot Wolf's that bad a general manager, or
no.
do you know?
So let's go to Ryan Cowden for a second. He entered the league in 2000, low-level assistant with the Panthers in their front office, stays there for 16 years, rises up the ranks, goes to Tennessee. He's there for another 5, 6, basically the assistant general manager. It's a different title, but he's right there next to John Robinson, who was Mike Vrabel's original GM at every press conference right next to him. Then he goes last 2 years consulting for the Giants. Elliot Wolf has been in the league about just as long. Instead, he worked for the Packers from 2004 to 2017, then goes to the Browns as an assistant GM in name and title and role for the next couple, and then comes to New England, has been here since 2020. So the resume to me is comparable. I think Elliot comes from a better background organizationally, not to mention his father is a Hall of Famer who did the same job. Doesn't mean he's going to be any better picking players come April 27th or whatever the draft is. But in speaking with GMs, current and former, and more than 20 sources that I spoke to for a profile about who Elliot is and how he thinks, yeah, I still have faith in him as someone who can run this front office. And I know everyone's upset, and I'm not saying you have to feel the way that I do. Feel however you want, okay? I just don't think 1 year presiding over a reset of a roster when the goal for this team was not entirely to win is a window into his abilities as a GM. Bad draft class, underwhelming free agent class. I think he deserves more time, and I'm just not sure he's going to get it, because if Cowden is his number 2, I'll put it to you like this. How many organizations or teams or whatever does the number 1 guy, theoretically, not get to pick his number 2? If you don't get to pick your right-hand man, you don't have the power. That's what this says to me, and that Ryan Cowden, with Mike Vrabel, will get more say than Elliot Wolf does.
Yeah, and you're giving a lot of responsibility to Vrabel, who's never built a team. You're allowing him to build a team. So ultimately, if Cowden becomes the whatever title they give guys,
It's not going to be GM.
yeah, it's not going to be GM. Even if they get rid of that Wolf, it's not going to be GM. But
Right.
but it's then you assume that it's Vrabel, and then by Vrabel by proxy, right? Like that Cowden is getting his marching orders from Vrabel. Vrabel ultimately decides, and now everything rests on him. So
That's the only
be
reason.
careful what you wish for.
That's the only reason I think Cowden would be better is because he's aligned with the new head coach you just went out of your way to hire. And where Wolf, really, I think if Wolf had his druthers, he might not have chosen Vrabel. I mean, if you give the search to the guy in charge, I don't know if it would have been Vrabel. It would have been a more broad search.
But if 2 guys are in lockstep and you're just bringing them in, do you like having that other voice in the room, at least at first? Like, even if he doesn't have the power to say no and get it done, just his voice, in the argument. Like, you have a guy, like if 2 guys are in lockstep and then you have another guy that thinks a little bit differently and you have to hear him out.
But if
Is that the worst thing in the world when you first start 2 inexperienced guys being in charge of building a team?
You're talking about Elliot?
Yeah, Elliot being in that mix. Like, that could be a good thing. Because if there's 2 guys that have never built a team on their own before, and then there's a guy with a different kind of experience, just him, at least at first, being part of the conversation, you could argue is a decent dynamic. So even if he doesn't have the power to squash whatever they want to do, he's there with his information and his ideas, and at least they have to hear him out. You understand what I'm saying? Is that the worst thing in the world?
Yeah, if Ryan Cowden, to steal another Bird reference, is just a parrot of Mike Vrabel, and
that's just mean.
They're always aligned in what they're saying. I'm not saying that's the case. I don't know Ryan Cowden.
Right.
I've been texting people around the league. Give me some feedback about him. I still don't know much.
Oh, that's not good.
Okay. Just no one wants to
Just
talk
kind
to
of
me.
a
That's
guy.
the lesson here.
No, just like, who knows?
It's not about you. It's about not getting any feedback from the people
But
you're asking.
to your point is if you bring in this new number 2 in your front office and you're trying to expand the diversity of thought and research and ability and knowledge for a team, let's be clear, needs as many good minds in the front office, coaching staff, and other departments as it can. Yeah, it's a good thing that Elliot Wolf is still sticking around. And I'll say this. I don't know this for a fact because, again, Mike Vrabel's calling the shots. He doesn't really know Elliot Wolf that much. Like when he's talking about in the press conference, oh, hey, Elliot's going to laugh at this, and we just want good players. That's the type we want. Like, that's an inside joke. It sounds like a first date. It sounds like they're getting to know each other. Maybe over the course of the next couple of months, even if here comes his long-term partner, Ryan Cowden, who he wanted to be his GM last year, he goes, I got a lot of respect for Elliot Wolf because of where he's been, what I've heard if I'm Mike Vrabel around the league, and what he's telling me now with this information. Because say what you will about the results, they've been bad so far into Elliot Wolf. Not denying that. He's still a smart guy. If Mike Vrabel is swayed by that and whatever conversations they've already had and continue to have, Maybe he does stick around and has a little bit more power than right now it appears he will.
Yeah, I just don't know if it's the worst thing in the world. Everyone's so quick to run everyone out of town. I don't know if it's the worst thing in the world because if they were bringing in a guy who's done it before and had success, I'd be like, all right, but they haven't.
If you like that clip, check out more videos from Toucher and Hardy here. For more Celtics analysis and opinion, hit this playlist. And for all the latest from the Sports Hub, download the app at 985thesportshub.com.